أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، حمدا لا نحصي ثناء عليه سبحانه وتعالى. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له، ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. وأشهد أن سيدنا حبيبنا قائدنا وقدوتنا محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه رسول الله، فقد بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حتى أتاه اليقين، صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه. يقول الله في محكم التنزيل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him for everything that He has given us. We thank Him for all the good days and the difficult days that we go through, my dear brothers and sisters. And we testify and bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also, my dear brothers and sisters, testify and become a witness that truly Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the seal of prophets. He was sent over 1400 years ago to guide us to the best of mankind, to the best way of this life and the best way of the akhirah. Indeed, he truly has delivered his message. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be always conscious of Him, and that we do not despair and we do not give up whenever we are encountering whatever challenges and difficulties. For all we know, to a mu'min, everything is good. If it is something good that befalls upon him, he is thankful or she is thankful. But if it is something that is of a hardship, then they express patience, and that patience becomes good for them as well. Subhanallah, only for the mu'min, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. My dear brothers and sisters, I had a different topic for this khutbah before, but wallahi, a few days ago, with everything that is befalling upon us, what we see in Syria, in Sham, we really have to talk about this. And people look at this, subhanallah, these days and wonder, what is the big deal that, of course, the massacre and all of this we see before us. But there are many other massacres also that happen across. What is the big deal about Sham? Sham to us, my dear brothers and sisters, is something the Prophet ﷺ told us to watch for. It is something of very important significance in our deen. Over 20 ahadith, sihah. The Prophet ﷺ, authentic ahadith, has talked about Sham, Syria, my dear brothers and sisters. Syria in our time, but Sham in those times were wide. Our topic today is what's happening in Syria, specifically Halab. Aleppo in English. My dear brothers and sisters, here are few ahadith. عن عبد الله بن عمر. Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, رضي الله عنهما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم بارك لنا في شامنا. Oh Allah, give us blessed and give us blessings and barakah in Sham. This is the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم talking about Sham. And this hadith is narrated by Imam al-Bukhari. In another hadith, عن أبي الدرداء رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Beautiful hadith. بينما أنا نائم. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم says, while I was lying down and sleeping, رأيت عمود الكتاب احتمل من تحت رأسي. That I saw that what symbolizes the book, knowledge, this deen, what symbolizes that was pulled out of my pillow. That's just a dream that the Prophet ﷺ is seeing. And of course the dream of the Anbiya is haqq. So the Prophet ﷺ, as he says this, he said, فَظَنَنْتُ أَنَّهُ مَذْهُوبٌ بِهِ. That I thought that this knowledge or this deen will be taken away. So what would be if that time comes in a time outside where the Prophet ﷺ was, or the Sahaba were, or the Tabi'een, in a time like us, when deen becomes, everybody is attacking this deen, where do we go? What do we do? So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, فَأَتْبَعْتُهُ بَصَرِي. When I saw something was taken away in the form of under my pillow, I followed it with my eye to see where it's going. فَعُمِدَ بِهِ إِلَى الشَّامِ. The deen was protected and left in Sham. When things become tough and Islam is attacked, look for the scholars, look for the deen to be established in Sham. In Sham, deen does not fall apart. That's what the Prophet ﷺ says. أَلَا وَإِنَّ الْإِيمَانَ بِالشَّامِ حِينَ تَقُومُ الْفِتَنِ. Iman remains in Sham when the fitan, when the tribulations and difficulties come. Iman will always remain in Sham. The Prophet ﷺ says, dear brothers and sisters, whatever we see, subhanallah, never question, what would happen in Sham. That is a place that is protected. That is why when we see over the years, with all conspiracies, subhanallah, worldwide that is happening on Palestine always remains. And now we say Sham always remains. Not because we think, it's because the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, which is authentic, this hadith was narrated by Imam Ahmad, that we are told about this. وعن زيد بن ثابت. زيد بن ثابت, the great Sahabi رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم طوبى للشام طوبى للشام طوبى للشام. The Prophet ﷺ said, blessed is the Sham, blessed is the Sham, blessed is the Sham, 3 times. قلنا لأي ذلك يا رسول الله. Why is it that you kept on repeating this, Ya Rasulullah? Then the Prophet ﷺ tells us that no eye can see, no technology can reveal, my dear brothers and sisters. The Prophet ﷺ says, لأن ملائكة الرحمن باسطة أجنحتها عليها. Because the malaika of Ar-Rahman, subhanah, has put its wings over Sham, my dear brothers and sisters. That's a Sham to us. I am not from Sham, I'm not from there. But wallah, it's dearer to me than my own country, my dear brothers and sisters. Because what the Prophet ﷺ has said, especially after I started to prepare on a khutbah like this, I started to realize more than what I knew before. When you think of the Sahaba radwanullahi alayhim, many Sahaba went to Sham, many of them. And I'll just name few of them so that we realize the value of that. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Amr ibn al-As, Bilal ibn Rabah, and many, my dear brothers and sisters, went there. When you think of scholars that has protected this deen over the years, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who was in Egypt and then moved to Syria, and when he left, he wrote a book that it's so dear to him that he leaves it to his back when he went back to his own country. Al-Imam Ahmad, the scholar of the school of thought, Al-Imam Ahmad, when he wrote multiple of his books, he wrote them in al-Masjid al-Umawi, which is in Halab, my dear brothers and sisters. This is, my dear brothers and sisters, this is what's to us. Al-Imam al-Dhahabi radiyallahu anhu, Al-Imam al-Sakhawi rahimahullah, all of these are major scholars that have written so much to protect this deen for us. So when we see what is around us, my dear brothers and sisters, never question why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this. Wallahi, it's us. And it's a process. As Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, Ibn Taymiyyah says that, of course, talking about the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that after me will be a khilafah rashidah. And after that there will be mulkun adud, that there will be khilafah on the way of what the Prophet ﷺ has left by al-khulafa al-rashideen. And that there will be a time where there will be forced kingdoms that will happen. But after that there will be khilafah ala minhaj al-nubuwah. That there will be a time where khilafah will come in the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is time that has not come, it will come. When we think of this, and we think what we're in now, you wonder, how is it? What would happen for us to go there? It will be a process. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, when he talks about this, he says, it's a process that the ummah will go through tribulations and tribulations until it's awakened from its numbness. Because the ummah is numb. And it will be shaken by multiple tribulations. And it becomes, when the time is right, when it's deserving of the victory of Allah, وَلَيَنْصُرَنَّ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَنْصُرُهُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give victory. It's inevitable. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give victory because the time is right and people are deserving. But Allah is just. Allah will not give us just victory like this just because we are Muslims. Allah gives the victory to the mu'mineen, my dear brothers and sisters. That's why when things like these happen, you first, before you question other things, you look within. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah Ash-Shura, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ. Not even a single musibah that happens. فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُم. That it's whatever you have earned because of the deeds that you have done. First we question ourselves and we correct ourselves. And in the process we're able to change things around us. That's how it is. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of an ummah, of a nation, of anything that is around, unless these people start to change themselves from within. Aleppo, Halab did not fall. It did not fall. Because it's a challenge that it's going through. But Halab, look at the history. It is a place, my dear brothers and sisters, over 30 civilizations have gone through that. 30 civilizations. Not just few emperors here and there. If you can just create some space by coming forward, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah fikum. 30 civilizations have gone through, and it was topped when the Islamic Empire came. When the Khilafah, in the form of Islam, came. It's a place where there is tolerance. You would see a church next to a masjid. And in the history of Islam, it allowed all of this. Worshippers of all forms, a place for them is Halab and Sham in general, my dear brothers and sisters. You wonder when you see this, what is the result of this? Because sometimes when we see all these difficulties and wallahi, our heart bleeds, wallahi. It's very hard. Especially in our days where we see on YouTube, everything is exposed. We used to hear about the father of this one of the worst leaders in our history, when he did what he did on Hamah before. I don't want to even mention his name in this minbar. But now what he does is something that is perceived by everyone, and when we see that, it hurts. But subhanallah, one of the things that we need to always see is the big picture. The big picture is, my dear brothers and sisters, it is very clear for those who had doubts, for those who did not have clarity about this, it is very clear that it exposed the savageness of this regime. And the support it gets from whether it's the Iranian government or the Russian government or others that have kept silent. The United Nations and many others that have kept silent. Our Muslim countries that many of us are still in doubt about their leadership forms. They've been silent when we see children and women. All of these are being killed in front of our eyes, my dear brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, wallahi, it's becoming a bit emotional. But it hurts, wallahi, to see all of this. But it's becoming very evident. for many of the Sahaba as they were going through the battle of Uhud. And it was very difficult for them to see that the Muslim group was actually split because some of the people, the munafiqeen, did not go out with them to fight. It was initially a little bit hard because they see that not all the Muslims came out. But it was clear afterwards that it was a filtering process to get rid of these munafiqeen. And we saw that again in the battle of Al-Khandaq, my dear brothers and sisters. At the battle of Khandaq, similarly, the battle of the Confederates, a similar thing happened where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala filtered the munafiqeen from those that are others, from the believers. This is what we see here. It is becoming clear for those that have doubts. For those that had doubts and had no clarity, it is very clear now what we see there. Dear brothers and sisters. What is, subhanallah, all of us, we're starting to read and look into this more and more. And one of the scholars had a very interesting perspective to this. And of course, we see now that Halab is in front of us. Many are forced to leave, or are not even, the residents are not allowed to leave. But those that were fighting are being under very tough conditions. And subhanallah, changed my perspective, the way the scholar puts it. He said, subhanallah, given all the plans that were there to make Halab fall, or Sham fall, in this form of this tremendous amount of Confederates and groups that are coming and betrayals that are happening, it should have fallen a long time ago. But years these mujahideen have been there, and that changed my perspective completely. For so many years they've been withstanding all this tremendous amount of pressure. Very simple fighters that were there, but they withstood and they never gave up. That is the perception, the change in perception that we have as we see what's happening in Halab. They have withstood, and there are shuhada amongst them. And subhanallah, this reminds me of the battle of Uhud. When in the battle of Uhud, of course, the Muslims had a loss towards the end of it. They lost that battle. But the Prophet ﷺ, in changing the perspectives of the Sahaba radwanullahi alayhim, he said, yes, we lost the battle, but we gained a shaheed. And of course, there were 70 shuhada there. But the Prophet ﷺ, to bring that the person that he lost the most, the one that was dearer to him, Hamza radiallahu anhu, he said, but today we gained a shaheed, Sayyid al-Shuhada, Hamza radiallahu anhu. Change in perspective. These shuhada that are dying there are a gain to the ummah. As difficult as it is to say. But it's a gain to the ummah, because that's what paves the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala down the line brings in the nasr from him. Subhanallah. You see, it's a bit difficult, at times of difficulties to see this. But who would have guessed that Yusuf sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who was in the well, at those and people were buying and purchasing him, if you will, would end up being the leader of Egypt? Who would have imagined? None. Of course, after the math, now we see it. But who would have imagined? None. Who would have thought that Bilal radiallahu anhu, in the early days of Mecca, who was tortured right next to Al-Kaaba, that after 20 years would come back and make adhan in Mecca, in Fathu Mecca? Who would have imagined? None. Who would have imagined that Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that was in Mecca and had to leave it and go to Al-Habasha in Abyssinia? Who would have imagined that he is among the leaders, the second leader that will be fighting the Romans who had over 200,000 soldiers. And he, of course, was one among the ones that went to Asham, to Syria. Who would have imagined? None. These are big pictures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only has. And so for us, it brings in that peace in our mind, that because the Prophet ﷺ said that this deen will prevail, it will prevail, and that khilafah will come. For us, we say this is a path to victory. My dear brothers and sisters, at the battle of Al-Khandaq, and I'll end the first khutbah with this. At the battle of Khandaq, subhanallah, as difficult as it is, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described that battle and said that وَإِذْ زَاغَتِ الْأَبْصَارِ, that the believers, when they heard that all these 10,000 people are going to come to attack Al-Madinah, the believers initially had fear in them. Their eyes were turning around. Where is the attack going to come from? Their heartbeats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, was felt down their throat. وَبَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبُ الْحَنَاجِرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the description of Allah. And yet, when they were about to attack, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sends Sa'd ibn Ubadah. Because Sa'd ibn Ubadah was known among the Al-Ansar. So he goes, Sa'd ibn Ubadah, and he checks. And he talks to the Jews. Because the Jews were the ones that betrayed that situation there. And called in the people of Mecca to come and attack. So he told them, do not betray us. We have a covenant. When the Prophet ﷺ arrived in Medina, he gave a covenant and made an agreement with you. That you will protect people of Medina and we will protect you. That was the agreement. But they betrayed. So he said, do not betray and stick to your agreements. And they said, we will not. You know what the Prophet ﷺ did? When Sa'd ibn Ubadah came to give him this tiding, the Prophet ﷺ says, Abshiru bi Nasrillah. La ilaha illallah. Wallah, you can't imagine. Subhanallah. He says, Abshiru bi Nasrillah. Today, now that it is clear who the mu'mineen are and who are not, and things are not mixed, now expect the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this, that when initially they had fear, that all these are going to come, but when they saw them, because of the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes and says, وَلَمَّا رَأَى الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْأَحْزَابَ قَالُوا هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. When they saw them coming to fight them, this is what Allah promised us. This is where the victory is going to come. Now, this is the fulfillment of the promise of Allah. وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا. That this increased them only in Iman. My dear brothers and sisters, Wallah. This is not because I am saying Wallah, but it's the promise of the Prophet ﷺ. It's the promise of Quran that if we stick to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring us victory. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Dear brothers and sisters, it is very important to us, while the belief is there, that we do things for effects to happen, for change to happen. So that we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, I have done, and we're talking about individuals as well as groups, but I have done the best that I could to help my brothers and sisters out there. We see what's happening. And we don't want any of us hearing reminders like these, that we go back and we just drive back and nothing has happened. Every one of us should do something that we could. And I'll list few things that each one of us could do. None of us here is incapable of at least doing one thing. Even the youngest of these kids could do one of these things at least. And some of us can do all. My dear brothers and sisters, the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Muslim says, Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. The Muslim is the brother of a Muslim out there. لا يظلمه ولا يخذله. That the Muslim, the Imam al-Nawawi, in describing this hadith, this portion of the hadith that is relevant to us, he says, لا يخذله. That he does not betray him or her. And he describes this by saying that when they're in need, the Muslim shows up for his brother and his sister. And it's very evident the need of our brothers and sisters out there. Few things, my dear brothers and sisters, that we can take in the shortage of this time, inshallah. One of them, and starting from the not the most important in terms of our deen, I'll leave that towards the end, but big things that could potentially do something. And maybe it won't have an effect, maybe they will not respond to us. But at least each one of us will say, I have done that. Send an email to President Obama. And we mean that. Send an email to President, and wallah, it will take you maybe a minute and a half. Just search and say email address President Obama, and then you could write that email. Very short email you can write. But just say your disappointment. All the legacy that he brags about, this is wallahi disgrace that is happening. And before leaders like this that could do something when they're silent, bring this to them. My dear brothers and sisters, Congress. We can send again another email or so to Congress. Representative of us here in California. All these 3 representatives that we have here. Send them an email saying that we want you to stop the massacre that's happening. Do something about that. We cannot keep silent. Each one of us, very simple, can do this. Even before we go out in the parking lot, this could be sent, my dear brothers and sisters. Our fellow Americans, many of them don't know anything about what's happening. And they hear about things, and all they hear is, again in the Middle East, again all of this, look what's happening. Because they don't know what's happening. If we don't educate them, Very few outlets are out there from the media to help. So if we can, inshallah, communicate with them. And now going internal to us, my dear brothers and sisters. Our a'immah, our schools have a role. When we have schools like this, and I heard about the gala earlier, that will be there. It's very important that our schools, inshallah, many of you support the Islamic school tomorrow, inshallah. But when that happens, my dear brothers, it's very important for us as a school to educate the kids of faith in this deen. Do not be shaken by what's around, what's happening. We have to have faith in this deen, and nothing is to shake us. And so that's very important for us to educate our own community. It's very important, my dear brothers and sisters. And I cannot, wallahi, say enough about this. Very important to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to all supplicate to Allah, raising our hands. And inshallah, this is the time, by the way, to fulfill the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is al-qunut. That after salah, you spend few minutes of making dua. At the last rak'ah before, just like a witr dua type of thing. That the last rak'ah before you make your sujood, you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When there are nawazil, when there are such difficulties, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to resort to that. In a battle of Al-Khandaq or battle of Uhud or so, all these times when he was at Taif or so, he used to make this type of ad'iyah, my dear brothers and sisters, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would help him. But organizations have come together to put qiyams so that we come outside the salah, we come in the form of making worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that He removes this difficulty from our brothers and sisters. We have qiyams in Masjid of Riverside, we have qiyams in Orange County, in LA, we have qiyams in the Valley, we have in so many, alhamdulillah. For the ummah to start to resort to means like this is a very positive sign that we see, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. My dear brothers and sisters, it is for us, Allah, it is for us to at this time, and I'll conclude with this, very important for us to support our dear brothers and sisters financially. There were times when we would in general come and say, give sadaqah. But this is the time when no calculation should work. You don't say how much I have. Whatever your heart says, give it. It is a responsibility because our dear brothers and sisters need it. Islamic Relief is putting together this main, inshallah, fundraising. All of us, even our young ones, wallahi, we should teach them. Give them $20, $30, $50, $100. Go and let them go and donate. This is the time when we show support to each other, my dear brothers. Do not be, inshallah, stingy and feeling, I don't have enough. Give and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you. This is the time when it becomes a must for us to support our dear brothers and sisters. Inshallah, do not hesitate with that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with our brothers and sisters in Syria. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, to strengthen them and show, inshallah, for them to show unwavering trust in you, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, forgive us for not doing enough, oh Allah, to help them. Oh Allah, ease their suffering and pain. Ya Allah, bring down the tyrant Asad and his supporters. Allahumma ameen. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى اللهم يا الله انصر إخواننا في الشام وفي كل مكان انصر إخواننا في فلسطين وفي كل مكان يا رب العالمين اللهم انصر إخواننا في الشام اللهم انصر إخواننا في الشام اللهم انصر إخواننا في الشام اللهم كن معهم اللهم كن معهم اللهم كن معهم اللهم تقبل شهداءهم اللهم اشف مرضاهم اللهم عاف مبتلاهم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم يا الله في هذه الساعة الكريمة يا الله نسألك يا الله أن تزلزل الأقدام تحت أعدائهم يا رب العالمين اللهم عليك ببشار وأنصاره اللهم عليك ببشار وأنصاره اللهم أرنا فيهم يوما أسودا كيوم عاد وثمود يا رب العالمين اللهم هذا الدعاء منك الإجابة يا رب يا الله تقبل منا في هذه الساعة الكريمة يا الله وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد وأقيم الصلاة
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح